What's up, everybody? You thought I was dead? Guess what? Sorry to crush your hopes and dreams. I'm still here. I'm still alive. This is Out of Continues, episode 298. This is a weekly podcast, post up every Monday, in which we talk about video games and related topics. And we post up new episodes on outofcontinues.com as MP3 every Monday, and it goes up before that on youtube.com/outofcontinues as a video. And for those of you who have no idea who I am, watch more episodes. But I am Staffa. And this week I have Kevin. I didn't update my notes.
How's it going?
All right. How you doing, Kevin?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
I am alive.
Staying alive?
Ha, 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 stay alive. Yeah. But anyways, this week's episode segments will include our main topic, which is oversaturation of games. After that, we got some quick announcements, and then we got some news topics to talk about. But before that, we're going to start talking about our disclaimer, which is all opinions expressed on the show are of our own and not of our employers, past, present, or future. Just let that sink in for a moment. So anyways, let's get going. Let's talk about our main topic, which is some oversaturation in the gaming industry. Is this a true thing? Are we just speculating? Is it made up? What is it? I don't understand. What am I even talking about? And what I'm talking about is, are there certain games or certain genres or certain types of games that are like a bit too oversaturated? So the reason why I wanted to bring up this topic is because there's been either closures, layoffs, or change of direction with certain studios or well-known studios in the recent weeks. Like last week, I didn't talk about it, but Runic Games, makers of Torchlight, and just recently Hob, like they just released that in September, late September. They closed their doors. Runic Games originally formed by like a former Diablo dev, and they wanted to make a Diablo type game, and at the time Blizzard wasn't making Diablo, so they made Torchlight. And like I remember, like the original announcement of Torchlight, they were saying that that was gonna be like their gateway game for their MMO action RPG.
Yeah. They were wanting to do something like what Diablo 3 sort of is, but before Diablo 3 had come out, but they wanted to make it an MMO. And then like the first Torchlight game was supposed to be a basis for that, but it only had single player. And that was one complaint that a lot of people had, was that it was single player only, and people wanted to do co-op like some of the other ARPGs have. And then but instead of doing their MMO route, they went with Torchlight 2, which is just a co-op version of Torchlight.
Yeah.
I mean, equal though.
Yeah. And like the thing is, like when they released the first Torchlight game, there weren't really many of those type of action RPGs or dungeon crawlers, whatever you want to call them. But by the time they released Torchlight 2, there was a ton of those games. There's, like right now that we have Pillars of Eternity. Sorry, not Path of Exile. another P and E title. I always mix those two up just because there's a P and an E.
Yeah, and
But
I've always abbreviated them similar too, like POE, especially when they're depending on what context it's in, but that happens.
but yeah, Path of Exile. It's like the big one right now. And uh, I think close to the release of Torchlight 2, Diablo 3 finally came out.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, there's a lot of those games now, and uh, like Torchlight 2 kind of got like overshadowed. Even though it was a good game, it definitely got overshadowed by, um, like Path of Exile and Diablo 3.
Mhm.
And they also released Hob, and I mean that's a different type of game, but I think they probably released it too late to save um their studio. Plus, there's not like a ton of hype behind Hob either. It's just like a pretty looking um isometric platformer type game.
Yeah.
So not a lot of hype. I mean, it looks cool. I still would like to play it, but it's not something that's making anyone going crazy over. So I mean, I'd probably say, like the oversaturation or like the abundance of those action RPGs at this point. Um, those loot-driven dungeon crawlers. I mean, there's tons of them now, and it's kind of hard for Torchlight to stand out and continue to make sales. Um, and also, this past week we had both Telltale Games and Housemarque Games hit the news. Housemarque Games didn't really have any layoffs though. Sounds like they're still going strong and they're still hiring a lot of people. They have a lot of job openings. Housemarque Games known for like Super Stardust HD. Um, what's that game on PS4? Resogun, I think. Um,
I'm not actually sure.
I think it's Resogun, and which is basically like a cool looking Defenders. Um, and uh, they released that game. What's it called? That it's like in the back of my mind. I know what it is. It's the Metroidvania style game. Outland.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
I really liked Outland, and they released two games this year. Let me look it up real quick, just so I'm not saying anything incorrect. Should have looked up Outland too, so I'm not like sound like a goober. But they really released Nex Machina, which seems like it got pretty good reviews.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
do remember that game. Never played it.
and Matterfall. Not really too sure what Matterfall even is. Let me look at some screenshots. It looks like it looks like some sort of another side-scrolling game. Looks like side-scrolling, but it's also dual stick shooter controls. Like a side-scrolling bullet hell game.
Mm.
It looks pretty cool. But I know Nex Machina got some pretty good reviews. Plus, they were hyping it because they had um, Eugene Jarvis work with them. And for those of you who do not know who Eugene Jarvis is, he's like a super old school game developer who has worked on, I believe, what's it called? Robotron.
Okay.
So yeah, so I mean, he basically helped them make Nex Machina, which is like a dual stick shooter. So obviously a game that's inspired by Robotron.
Hmm.
Um, so Housemark, they basically put out like a blog post saying that arcades are dead.
Yeah.
And so a lot of their games are arcade style, trying to get like a high score, dual stick shooters. Um, and the thing is, it's like there's a lot of those type of games right now. If you want to find a dual stick shooter, it's not hard to find one. And there's a lot of good ones. But the thing is, you gotta like, I feel like at this point, you can't just be like a good dual stick shooter, that the only objective is to like get a high score. Um, you gotta have more to it than just that. Um, and kind of like build more of a game that has like either RPG elements or puzzle elements or like story, um, more of a world. You can't just make another Geometry Wars at this point because like I mean, even though there's like 3 Geometry Wars games, I mean, people are still satisfied with the first one.
Mm.
You can't just make another game that's just high score, dual stick shooter.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to stand out at that point. There's too many good ones.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's already come to the point where that market has its key games, and just cloning the games that have already been made isn't enough anymore. You have to introduce something new or something interesting that makes it stand out. Otherwise, it's just a clone, and if it's not done particularly well, then the game that it's cloning is obviously going to remain the the one that people play. And I think that kind of also goes into other genres as well, like MMOs.
Mhm.
Games like World of Warcraft have reigned champion for several years, and there have been a lot of games that have been trying their hardest to become the next WoW killer or something along those lines, but they don't do anything that majorly different, or even if they do something different, they have trouble holding the numbers to World of Warcraft. But
Yeah. I don't know, like there's one dual stick shooter, or I mean, it's more of a mouse and keyboard, but it's isometric style dual stick shooter type game that I think works pretty well. It's Alien Swarm on
that
Steam,
time,
and it's because it's not just about trying to get a high score and getting swarms of enemies coming after you. There's actual levels that you progress through. It's like a 4 player, like almost Left 4 Dead style game where it's survival and you're you trying to make sure your teammates don't die and you heal. If one of them gets knocked down, then one person heals or revives the person as the other tries to cover fire, and you plant your turret down, and there's like a lot more to it than just um, dual stick shooting.
yeah,
So like that's the only way to really make your game stand out at this point with like that type of genre is to do more than just make it a dual stick shooter. Um, and also, uh, Telltale Games, they're in the news as well, and they laid off a quarter of their staff, um, 90 people, which that's pretty big. I mean, like they became a pretty big studio to have 360 people in their staff.
Yeah.
That's comparable to the studio I work at, which is also a really big studio. I think that's actually might even be bigger. Like 360 people. I think that's more than how many people are in my studio, and we're a AAA studio.
Yeah, and I think they I remember, like, if you think about the past couple of years, there have been, at least from my perspective, and I know a few people that have also had the same concerns, but they seem to just grow way too quickly, and for better or for worse.
Yeah,
Like, they took on a lot of projects. They started releasing more games on a more frequent basis. And I remember hearing some Telltale fans who were also a little burnt out on Telltale games.
yeah.
And I mean, they may have had the size to make sure that each game released with a good enough quality, but I think they may have just oversaturated themselves, like their own market,
Yeah.
by releasing too many games.
It was like right after the first Walking Dead game. That's when they just blew up.
Hmm.
They went from like a small indie developer that was working on like Sam and Max, and they started getting a few bigger um IPs like Jurassic Park, which was ended up being a terrible game, and also um Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And I remember a lot of people were like really hyped for that because it was supposed to be like, a fourth Back to the Future movie. And they got like a really good Michael J. Fox sound alike. Um, and what's his name? The dude that plays Doc Brown. Like, I think they actually got him to do the voice for Doc Brown.
Yeah.
So I don't think I heard bad things about it, but I don't think I heard like great things about it either. So sounds like it was an all right game. But after Walking Dead, they really blew up because that was a really good game, and they're also like the Walking Dead TV series was uh, getting a lot of popularity as well. So people are jumping on there from that hype train. So so they got really big, they expanded really fast, got a lot of um deals with a lot of other a lot of license holders. uh they got deals with WB for Batman. They made two. They're on their second Batman right now.
Yeah.
They got deals with Marvel. They did Guardians of the Galaxy. um Deals with HBO with Game of Thrones. Um, Deals with 2K with uh Borderlands, and deal with Microsoft for giving Minecraft a story.
Yeah.
And that game also has like some big name actors like Patton Oswalt. So
Yeah.
yeah, they got really big, and it's like too big too fast. Um, because I was liking their games at first, but then I got burned out. Um, After The Wolf Among Us, which was really good. I don't think I've beaten any other Telltale game. Oh wait, I beat Walking Dead season 2. So after
Yeah.
Walking Dead season 2, I haven't beaten anything else. I haven't. I own Game of Thrones. I own Tales from the Borderlands. I haven't finished those. I haven't I haven't purchased any other uh of their games at this point because they haven't really changed the formula up. The formula for the gameplay is the exact same thing for each of those games. They're using the same engine, which is kind of buggy. It's not very stable. Um, so I feel like they've oversaturated themselves, which they kind of revived the point and click adventure game because the point and click adventure genre was dead for a while. It was huge in the 80s and early 90s, but then it died off, and then they brought it back. They revived it, and they're killing it again, which
Yeah.
is really crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat. I really haven't touched any of the Telltale games since Walking Dead season 2. That was the last one I played. But and I mean, I've heard good things about the other games. So I mean, I don't know if, despite their size, I mean, they seem to be still putting out decent quality games.
I
Despite
haven't heard good stuff about Walking Dead season 3.
Oh yeah, I haven't heard much about that one. But I mean, I'm talking about, like, I heard good things about Batman. Uh,
Yeah, Batman sounds like it's doing pretty well. I haven't heard anything about I want to like look up like their Metacritic,
yeah, and
see
there's
see
some
how those are doing.
Game of Thrones and their Borderlands game. But I mean, I think I have the Game of Thrones one and Borderlands, but I haven't even started them. I haven't even installed them. And I think, it's definitely, I think you mentioned this too, but they did not really change the formula much. I don't know if they have since then, but the gameplay formula seems to be largely the same across all the games. It's just a different setting and a different story. And at that point, I mean, it's almost like potentially just sitting there and watching a movie.
So I'm looking at their Metacritic page. It looks like Minecraft has like 60s. I mean, like it looks like every single episode has like an individual score rather than like the whole season.
Mm.
But Minecraft season 2 is like in the 60s and low 70s as far as Metacritic. Um, The Walking Dead. Okay. No, that's like collection. Guardians of the Galaxy episode 5 has like 81, but the rest are in the 70s. Um, Batman, The Enemy Within, is that season 1 or season 2? I think that's season 2. Batman season 2 looks like it's in the 70s and 60s. Minecraft season 2 is in the 70s. So,
Average
yeah,
throughout the. So maybe yeah, maybe I was wrong about that, but
like Batman, I think Batman season 1. I'm trying to find that. The huge is just so long. I
yeah,
mean, the list is so long. Um, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy again, and they're 70s. Um, but yeah, I mean, it looks like over time uh the Metacritic review scores have been going lower and lower. Um, Batman season 1 got an 84, so that's not bad. Um, but yeah, I mean, it just seems like just looking at the Metacritic scores, it looks like it's going lower and lower, which just shows that the quality isn't staying consistent.
yeah, yeah. It just seems like they've kind of got caught up in how many different IPs that they've been able to make, and forgot about, and then just wanted to expand and left the quality at stake. And I think that's kind of been a trend overall in the gaming industry, especially in the AAA market over the past several years,
Hmm.
where companies are starting to they're emphasizing and prioritizing how many games they release as opposed to the quality of the games that they release.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that a game that, or a company like Telltale, fell into that same trap where they made they they did really well with the first Walking Dead and Wolf Among Us seasons, and I think that may have gotten to their heads a little bit, and they thought that they could do more and more and expand and become bigger and just release more games with different IPs or different settings and stories, and it kind of just backfired on them, and so now they're struggling to maintain the same level of quality that they used to, and now have to end up laying off a bunch of developers and taking them away from their jobs because they need to restructure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like before Walking Dead, it seemed like they had like a bunch of games coming out in 2010 and 2011. But they were all like really small games, like Puzzle Agent, which is standalone.
Yeah.
Puzzle Agent 2, some Law and Order and CSI games, Poker Night at the Inventory, just a bunch of really small games. And then after Walking Dead, they went Poker Night 2, Wolf Among Us, Walking Dead Season 2, Tales from the Borderlands, Game of Thrones, Minecraft, The Walking Dead, Michonne, Batman, The Walking Dead: A New Frontier, which is I guess that's season 3.
Oh yeah, Michonne was the filler spin-off type season, I guess.
Yeah. Oh no, it wasn't the filler was the Walking Dead 300.
Oh yeah,
or
that's right.
300 days.
Or something like that. Yeah. 300.
Walking Dead Michonne was like its own like mini season that
Okay.
it's supposed to explain like where she went in the comics, because in the comics like she left the group for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Walking Dead New Frontier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Minecraft Season 2, which came out, let's see, 2017, and Minecraft Season 1 ended in September 26th. So about a year later, they made Season 2. Batman Enemy Within, again, like about a year later.
Mm-hmm.
Walking Dead, the final season coming out next year, and Wolf Among Us, season 2 coming out next year. Game of Thrones season 2, to be announced. Just they got so much, and it makes me wonder, like, who's playing these games?
Yeah. I guess maybe what they were hoping is that if not everyone is playing their games, then at least they're trying to reach different demographics and different audiences with each game. And
Yeah.
so they're trying to but I don't know if they're generally, or if they're even targeting those games towards a specific market. They're just kind of putting out games with different IPs that already exist, and they're probably just hoping that people who like those IPs in general would play their games, but they're not doing much besides the story and setting to make them drastically different, I guess. But
Yeah.
I don't know, because I haven't played anything beyond the second season of Walking Dead, so I don't even know how the other games play, really. But it just seems like like I mentioned earlier, they got a little bit too excited, I guess, about the fact that they were doing well, and maybe just expanded too quickly without actually having a decent plan in place, other than let's just have more people so we can make more games.
Yeah. And some of these projects just seem like they're just tie-ins for basically to market like a movie or a series, like Game of Thrones and Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians coming out like around the time that the movie came out, Guardians Volume 2, and the Game of Thrones game came out around the time that it was airing on HBO.
Yeah.
So it seems more like just more of a tie-in than a standalone. And of course, The Walking Dead, they like to time that so it's coming out around the same time as the TV show at this point.
Yeah.
Even though it's more connected with the comic than the TV show, but still, it seems more of a tie-in at this point, especially with people saying that it's not as good as what it used to be. Um, it's very sad because I remember like at one point I was very excited for these games, and what I'd compare like, oh, which one is my favorite Telltale game at this point? Because the writing was very good, and the choices that you make, even though they're very arbitrary, they felt very impactful. Like it helped get immersed into the story. But now they're just, they've increased their staff to 300, over um
360, I think, was it?
yeah, 360, or just a huge amount of people. And so obviously you have like different writers working on different games and different artists working on different games, but seems like the same programmers working on the same engine, because the engine sounds like it hasn't improved too much over time. They probably like mainly were hiring writers and artists for to create the new art assets for the game.
Yeah.
And if you have like so many writers, because I mean the writing is like a huge portion of the game. When you're hiring so many writers, then the quality of the writing is going to be very inconsistent.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to have the same people working on the stories. Some people might be less experienced than others, and like if you have the same writers working on all the games, then they're gonna get worn out from the work overload. So I mean, regardless, it's a lose-lose situation when you uh, work on so many narrative games all at once.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they single-handedly revived the point and click adventure game, but they're slowly sinking that ship as well. But I mean, it's not. I don't. Well, I'll take that back. I'll definitely take that back. Uh, I think we're getting to the point where other developers are coming up with new formulas um, for the point and click adventure style. Like you have Life is Strange. What other games recently came out? Like Her Story or something like that. Um, you have other adventure games that are doing things differently.
Mm-hmm.
So Um, so I'll take it back. They're not like sinking a ship. They definitely helped bring attention to uh, point and click adventure, story driven games again, which is allowing for other developers to work on their own style of adventure games. But at least their style, the Telltale style, is uh, definitely getting oversaturated.
Yeah. Definitely.
Um, other than that, like I feel like there's other areas in the video game industry that's getting oversaturated, and I feel like the fighting game genre. It died for a while, and then it started coming back. Like last generation with games like Street Fighter 4, and what is it? Mortal Kombat. Like Street Fighter 4 and Mortal Kombat really started reviving fighting games again.
Mm.
And um, I feel like Capcom is oversaturating their own series with just basically releasing new versions of Street Fighter every like year or so. Same with Marvel vs. Capcom. Like just they released Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and then a new version of Marvel vs. Capcom 3 within the same calendar year. And like they're over there saying like, oh, the fighting game genre is getting oversaturated in this industry. It's like, yeah, because you're oversaturating it yourself.
Yeah.
And the quality of the games aren't even like getting better or anything. I mean, like when Street Fighter 5 came out, it came out with just multiplayer mode. It didn't even have like a story mode or anything. So, obviously they're like rushing their games out the door, releasing them incomplete. And I think ArcLight systems might also be contributing to the oversaturation as well, because if you look at Blaze Blue and Guilty Gear, like there's like so many different versions of Blaze Blue and Guilty Gear. It's not even funny. It's like, okay, I want to get a Guilty Gear Xrd. Which version should I get? Because there's like 3 different versions of the game. I guess the newest version is the most expensive version. I guess that's the one I get.
Yeah.
So, there's just there's a bit of an oversaturation, and I feel like it makes it difficult for a lot of other studios to work on those type of games, because like there's the few main games that are made by the most popular publishers and developers, like Capcom and ArcLight systems. And so it's hard for like an indie developer to jump in that area as well. But it's mainly getting oversaturated by like the same main studios.
Yeah.
And MOBAs.
Yeah, MOBAs for sure. That's I think in the gaming industry there's like it goes in trends. Like one game will come out that has a big impact, and then everyone tries to clone it, trying to get their piece of the pie.
World of Warcraft.
So, yep, same thing as I was mentioning with World of Warcraft earlier. And then, like right now, MOBAs are huge. And before that, I think it was like strategy game, or not strategy games, sorry, survival games, in similar line to like DayZ or H1Z1.
Well, those have like those have kind of like went the direction of PUBG.
Yeah, they went to more. It started off as being, here's survival against some kind of zombies or mutants or something, and at the same time you're trying to survive in this multiplayer world and trying not to get killed by other players. And then now it's and I think from that for a while at least, because around that time also the Hunger Games movies came out, and that brought back a lot of people to the original movie, or actually the original book that inspired all of that, which was Battle Royale. And then Battle Royale was made into a movie, and then Hunger Games came out. And so I think just because of the timing of Hunger Games and how popular that was, and the survival games, games like there was a Battle Royale mod for the Arma games, and that became pretty popular. And then people started trying to make their own standalones. But now the big one is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and that's actually made by the person who made the Battle Royale mods for Arma.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of taking that from the mod space into its standalone game. And because of how popular it is, actually, I think PUBG at the moment is the most popular game of all time. Like it's got the most number of concurrent players ever. It's beat out Dota 2 on Steam, which used to be the number one game. It's like probably the highest selling game. I don't know all the statistics about it,
It's
but
still like top on the Steam
yeah,
sales chart, like the most popular selling game right now.
yeah, and so it's doing really well. And obviously, and if a game's doing well, it's doing something right. And a lot of people, a lot of other companies have been trying to make their own versions of it so that they can uh, get their piece of the pie. And I think it kind of happened with card games as well. Like Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone were pretty popular, and then all these companies started trying to make their own IPs into card games, or they're just making up new card games, especially like in the mobile space or uh, things like that, where card games were just becoming the thing for people to make.
Yeah, and there's like so many of them right now, and lots of them are basically dead in the water, uh, because they can't get the user base large enough.
Yeah,
And like specifically for multiplayer games, you need to have a community large enough for people to be able to play against different people consistently. Like if people are playing online and they're going against the same few people, the same handful of people, uh, they will not continue playing.
yeah,
Um, I mean that's no matter what type of multiplayer game it is, whether it's card game or like a multiplayer shooter. I mean, just for like just I mean, even just a multiplayer shooter, whether it's like a first person shooter, um, like even those are hard to gain an audience for. I mean, like look at Cliff Bazinski's game.
oh, Lawbreakers.
Yeah, Lawbreakers. I mean, like it has no community at all. So it's also dead in the water. And like this, it seems like every other week there's an interview with Cliff Bazinski talking about how he's going to revive the game, and the game came out like a few months ago. Um, and it's because like there's basically like a handful of really good multiplayer shooters. So like any multiplayer shooter that's made by a smaller indie developer, it's hard for them to gain traction by getting enough users to play it. I mean, like PUBG. I mean, that's also indie, but they're just really popular at this point.
Yeah,
Um, so that's why they got so many people playing. But as far as like any other indie developer trying to make some sort of an online multiplayer shooter, it's just super difficult for them to just gain an audience. Or even it doesn't even have to be indie. I mean, like look at Quake. that's being published by Bethesda. No one's playing that right now.
Oh yeah, I
That's a
forgot.
that's a game.
Oh man, I completely forgot that they did that.
Quake Champions.
Yeah,
Is that on Steam? Let me check if that's on Steam.
I don't even know.
Quake Champions is on Steam. And it's like early access, $30. But yeah, I mean, like they just did like a humble bundle, like a few weeks ago that had Quake Champions as one. No, it wasn't a humble bundle. It was a humble monthly. Yeah, last month's humble monthly included basically a bunch of Bethesda games, like the Elder Scrolls Online and like some booster expansion pack for the Elder Scrolls Legends, the card game, and also included Quake Champions. So I mean, like all three of those games basically game multiplayer games that are in oversaturated genres: the shooter, card game, and MMORPG. Like if you're playing any of those type of games, there's already a bigger, more popular one that's basically dominating the market, or a few bigger, more popular ones that are dominating the market.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, it's just very difficult at this point for multiplayer games to, um, just gain communities. There's so many game developers at this point. Like I think right now there's like more game developers and video game studios than there ever was before,
yeah,
and like so many games are coming out. It's uh like we've never had this many games come out ever. Like there's um you know AAA games are coming out with really quality games, as well as like tons and tons and tons of indie games. I mean, like right now, I'm just having Steam scroll the marquee in front of me, and Dream Daddy. I mean, I can finally play Dream Daddy, which I was never able to play that in the past. Get to finally have my dad dating simulator. Yeah,
Dream Daddy.
finally,
Yep.
it's about time. But yeah, I mean, do you have anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, I think we pretty much covered all the things I had on mind.
Okay. So let's where are my notes? Let's one thing that's definitely not oversaturated.
Hmm. The web isn't saturated, right?
Actually it is, but you know how you can like get yourself into that saturation?
To have your own website, right?
Sure. And you know how you can do that?
Uh, I don't know. I think I might need a suggestion. Do you have one, Staffa?
Sure. DreamHost. They're a web service that offers unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth, user-friendly interface. They're also optimized to use content managers such as WordPress and many more features. All that just for $7.95 US a month. And if you use the promo code out of continues, it's one word, no spaces, no saturation. It'll waive away the setup fee and get you a free domain registration.
Nice.
All right. Some quick announcements. iTunes reviews. We can use that. We can definitely use more iTunes reviews. If you use iTunes, please leave a review. It's one of the single most helpful things you can do for the podcast. Helps get us on the iTunes podcast charts. If you can't leave us a review for whatever reason, you can still help us out by sharing the podcast with friends on social media. Also, I'm probably going to be making an announcement soon on the podcast in general. I'm going to probably be changing things up sometime within the near future. So I've that's still undecided, but I will let you guys know once changes will be coming. I'm in pain. The listeners are confused. So anyways, let's talk about some gaming news. As I am screen sharing. All right. Um let's talk about Ubisoft. Your good friend Ubisoft.
Yeah.
You love Ubisoft, don't you?
If you asked me that same question like 10 years ago, the answer would have been a resounding yes.
So anyways, a lot of people have been afraid that single player games are dead. Um I personally I think maybe like the Uncharted style, like big budget, um, single player platformer slash shooter, like just big adventure linear experience might be getting close to dead because you only have like a few developers working on those games at this point. But like, as far as like, I think a lot of single player games are moving more towards open world, having like a lot more, um, a lot more to do within the world rather than like a short linear experience that the consumer will only play once and then sell to GameStop. But anyways, Mr. Yves Guillemot, the CEO of Ubisoft, was asked about single player games because the shuttering of Dead Space developer Visceral, is that a word, shuttering?
Shuttering. I guess like I think shuttering is like when you board up the windows of a building.
I suppose.
So I
Why did they use the word shuttering in this article? The shutting down of a Visceral, not shuttering. Come on, that's confusing. Why would you use that word? The shutting down of Visceral. Yves Guillemot was asked about single player games, and he basically said that they're definitely interested in single player games, and he thinks that adding RPG mechanics or RPG elements into a single player game will increase the appeal to extend the replayability, similar to like what they did to um, Assassin's Creed Origins, making it more of an RPG. And also he mentioned implementing user generated content can also get players to come back to titles for longer periods of time. And he also noted that Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle is the best selling third party game on the Switch, and that's a single player game.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I think I mean, I guess my take on this is I don't know if single player games are necessarily dead. I I mean, it may seem that way with companies like Visceral being shut down, but I think it's purely from the publisher's standpoint on what their goal is that makes it seem that way. Because I mean, EA is one of the biggest publishers in the world when it comes to video games, and they've got their agenda. Like they've been known to include things that are questionable in games for the sake of increasing the monetization value. Um, And so they're obviously just trying to find ways for games to become more of a service, I guess, so that
Hmm.
they are something that can be extended and continued as opposed to single player games, which are a one and done type of thing. But if you look at a lot of the, I mean, like with indie companies or with a lot of there's some AAA companies that still value single player campaigns as their primary thing. And I don't think that there's any danger when it comes to single player games. I think it's mostly just publishers wanting to push uh, their games to make them more money, and the easiest way to do that is to make games last longer. I guess to make a single game have the ability of bringing in more money, as opposed to making several games and trying to sell them. And um, so for them, it makes sense that they want to make games that are multiplayer, that have like microtransactions, that may be free to play, that allow people to buy more in-game content. And so I think it's purely from which perspective you're looking at it. And I would not necessarily agree that single player games are dying. Um,
Yeah, I mean, like in general, if you're talking about like single player in general, I mean, like obviously we just talked about how like there's oversaturation in multiplayer games. It's hard to make a multiplayer game with a large enough community. So if multiplayer games are getting like oversaturated and single player games are dying, does that mean like all video games are failing?
right? Yeah.
Obviously not. I mean, like there's tons of great games coming out,
Hmm.
both multiplayer and single player. Um, I mean, like as far as um, like you mentioned, it depends on like what the publisher is trying to go for, and it just seems like the larger publishers, they need to have like a continued revenue for these games because they put so much money into the games to make them, so they need to like have uh, you know certain amount come back, and not only to make up for the cost of that game, but also to fund other projects that they want to start working on. So it just due to the size of their studios, it's they pretty much have to make so much money. Um, unless they are like oh, what was that like program that EA had where they like their partner program where they will publish like um an indie developer game,
Oh,
like that the Yarny game.
yeah. I forgot what it was called, but I remember what you're talking about.
Like the that type of program, of course they don't need to like make uh tons of money. They don't need to like make continued revenue for that those type of games.
I think it was it called EA Originals? I think
I
that's
don't think so.
I did a search for it, and it says EA Originals is for games that are unique, gorgeous, innovative, and memorable. It's intended for boosting the indie development.
Maybe I don't know. That doesn't sound right though. I don't think it was called EA Originals. I think they're making stuff up. Tell Google Google's wrong.
This is on Polygon, so maybe
Oh,
Polygon's wrong.
yeah, Polygon's always wrong.
Kotaku,
But
EA Originals, yeah, or hmm, yeah, I think it's called EA Originals. Maybe they changed it. I don't know. But
but yeah, their partner program. So
yeah, and I think if you look back not several, like a few years ago, when a lot of single player games were trying to put multiplayer aspects into them, people also got upset about that because now developers are allocating resources that could have been going towards the development of the single player campaign and tacking on a multiplayer thing because they thought that multiplayer was the way to make a game last forever. But people got upset about that, and a lot of people were complaining that why did they put a multiplayer mode in this single player game? It doesn't need it, and they're just doing it, and they're wasting time and money. So I think, it really is the perspective that you're looking at the games industry as a whole and what each company is trying to accomplish. But I don't think in any way that single player games are dead and that multiplayer games are the only way to go. And like even back when the first Star Wars Battlefront game that DICE made came out, people were complaining that there was no single player campaign, and same with Titanfall. So it's not one way or the other. I think it has to be decided on a per game basis, and trying to force either aspect, trying to force a single player game in a game or single player mode in a game that doesn't need it is just as bad as forcing a multiplayer mode in a game that doesn't need it.
Yeah, like forcing a multiplayer mode in God of War Ascension.
Yeah.
That was a thing.
Yeah.
That was totally a thing. Have you ever played that?
I never did. I skipped that one.
I played the beta of the multiplayer, and I was like, this is completely unnecessary. I was like, I do not see myself playing this at all.
Yeah.
Ready to move on?
Sure.
Okay, we already talked about those. Okay, speaking of Titanfall, EA purchased Respawn, and the Titanfall IP are now officially part of EA. So what? There was a number here that showed what the okay, so they paid 151 million for Respawn, as well as 164 million in equity. And yeah, like a lot of people have been noting that the number seems a bit small for purchasing the studio. And I think probably because like they can say, oh, they made 2 Titanfall games that didn't sell very well. So that's why they're purchasing it for a lower number. But then like once they've acquired the company, they'd be like, oh, they made 2 games that reviewed very well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm no like accountamatician. So I don't really know. I don't really have too much input on like the requirements of the studio, whether it actually is too low or whatever, but
Yeah.
I mean I did really like the Titanfall, the first couple of games. Also, I mean they also have like this mobile game, but it's not made by Respawn. It's made by a different studio. Mobile game's also pretty cool, but I'm a fan of Titanfall, especially the second game. I thought the campaign was amazing, like one of the best campaigns for a first-person shooter I've played in recent years. Like as far as the game design of it, like pacing, the shooting. I mean, it's just a really fun campaign. Like aside from the story not being like anything outstanding, you played it too, right?
I never finished it. I got through like I think a couple hours, but I never got past that.
I think it was only like 5 hours long or so.
Yeah, it wasn't that I stopped playing it because I didn't like it. I think I just got busy with some other things and then never got around to picking it back up again.
Yeah, I really liked it. and I know a lot of people at work also really like it as well. I mean, they Respawn has obviously they have very talented people. They're basically um, formed by former Infinity Ward uh, guys,
Hmm.
and they basically um, created Call of Duty and also basically created Medal of Honor. So, I mean, very talented people. And yeah, I mean, the at least the one part of this news that I do like is that they're saying they're working on a new Titanfall game. So at least that. But I mean, see, after they've like shut down Visceral, and EA has shut down so many other studios after acquiring them,
Yeah.
it's definitely scary.
Yep.
So I'm sure that they wouldn't have sold themselves to EA if they didn't feel confident of the future of their studio. I mean, like if they didn't feel confident about the future of their studio, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have sold themselves to EA. But hopefully they feel confident about it and that they continue to make more games.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add?
Not really.
All right. I didn't even read this one. Should I just skip it?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to read that one either.
Okay. All right. Injustice 2. So the second character pack or sorry, fighter pack 3. Okay, so the fighter packs have been announced. Fighter pack 2 has announced that they had Hellboy in it, and that was like a few weeks ago. And this is like Hellboy from the comics. Because he looks more like the comic book style rather than like movie style.
Hmm.
And also Fighter Pack 3 for Injustice 2. They announced the Ninja Turtles. And I think this is pretty cool. Like I've heard really good reviews on Injustice 2, and this just makes me want to play that game even more so. Like have you played the Injustice games?
No, actually, I don't play very many fighting games, and I think I own the first Injustice game though, because I think I got it through some bundle, but I never
Probably
actually
Humble Bundle.
probably. But yeah, I never actually played it.
I
I'll,
like the first one, and it sounds like the second one has a really good single player mode, um, where you kind of like have like this loot driven type thing where you unlock armor and equipment for your character.
that's interesting.
So it sounds like the single player mode is very robust. But just seeing the characters that they're adding for through the DLC packs, which I'm sure they're all gonna be bundled together in like some sort of Injustice 2 Ultimate Edition or whatever,
Yeah.
or Complete Edition with a K. um, that's inevitable for them to eventually release that. And I definitely think it's cool that they're adding in comic characters that are from like different comic universes, like Hellboy and Ninja Turtles. Though the Ninja Turtles, they didn't show gameplay in the trailer, but from what it seems like all four of them are one character, and you probably like play as a Ninja Turtle and like they tag each other in or something. That's what I'm assuming.
Hmm.
Because the way how they come in, they're like, we fight as a team, and they're like all standing together. So I'm assuming it's like one
Yeah, like a
one unit.
tag type system. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
But regardless, it still seems cool that they got the Ninja Turtles in, and I'm excited. Even though you're not excited, I am.
I'll probably eventually get around to playing the first one, but it's definitely not a high priority for me, just because I never got really that connected with fighting games,
Mm-hmm.
and so I don't really pay much attention to fighting games in general. But I did hear that the single player campaign for Injustice was really good, so I'll definitely check it out at some point.
Yeah, I like the single player campaign of Injustice, but it wasn't as long as Mortal Kombat, which I really liked the that reboot Mortal Kombat. I really like the campaign. I haven't played Mortal Kombat X yet, nor Injustice 2, but I would like to get around to them. It's just fighting games are oversaturated. um. Let's talk about the Harry Potters. So, Kevin,
Yeah,
are you a Harry Potter fan?
yeah, I like Harry Potter in general.
What does it mean to be a Harry Potter?
I hmm, I don't know what it means to be a Harry Potter, but I can speak as being someone who likes the Harry Potter series.
So it seems that what's their name? Nemantic or
Niantic,
Niantic.
Niantic, yeah.
Yeah, Niantic is working on a Harry Potter game. So Niantic, the makers of Pokemon Go,
Pokemans.
Pokemon Go. I like the mangoes of the Pokies.
Mm-hmm. Just once.
So they're working on a Harry Potter game. What do you imagine this game would be like?
So I imagine that you. I honestly I have no idea because I haven't actually read or listened to anything deep into this. I just know this was happening, but like with Pokemon, it makes sense.
So basically, they just said that we're actively expanding the Pokemon Go development team to build many more amazing features in 2018.
So they have a game.
There's no real announcement. It just sounds like um, there's. It just seems like they announced that there's a Harry Potter game and it won't affect the Pokemon Go game. But anyways, continue what you're saying.
So yeah, like I have no idea what type of gameplay loop that they're going to go for with Harry Potter. Just because it makes sense with Pokemon, because the whole aspect of Pokemon is both in the show and the games is to go around and catch Pokemon, and so like that makes sense to be made into an AR game because you're actually going to have to do exactly what is in the show or in the game. But with Harry Potter, I'm not really quite sure what they're going to make other than potentially they might have like a. So I don't know how many people actually played the first game that Niantic made, but it was called. Why can't I think of what it was called?
It was that Google game, right?
It was it was the one that they worked with Google on, and basically you had like the Enlightened and the Resistance, and basically the idea was the Enlightened were people that accepted some kind of like evolution to become a higher level of human, and then the Resistance were people who thought that humans should stay pure, and basically you were just battling out for
Ingress.
Ingress. That's right. Basically, you were just battling to capture locations. So it was like a very complex capture or King of the Hill type of game where you had multiple points around majority of the world, or at least within the U.S. I don't remember how far they expanded that, but they used major landmarks, and they use major places within cities as the capture points. So each side of the team would capture that area, and then basically they would try to build triangles to encompass entire areas. So if they captured 3 landmarks, then all of the area within those 3 points was theirs. And then the other team would try to go back to those areas and capture them again, and try to reclaim areas. So it was basically just like a tug of war, king of the hill type of game where each side would try to control as much territory as possible.
Didn't Google basically use the data that they collected from that game to improve Google Maps by adding like trails and stuff?
Yeah, so they were basically trying to use part of that experiment was just to see where people went the most. And they were trying to improve Google Maps data on those key areas, I think was what their major goal was. And then Niantic was just also experimenting with AR games in general. And so it seemed like a perfect little partnership between them because the game involves using Google Maps data. And actually Pokemon Go uses the exact same data that Ingress uses, but it just changes what they look like. So all of the gyms and all of the places where you, like the Pokestops where you can pick up items, those were all the same spots where Ingress had its capture points. So basically they just took the exact same data, same landmarks, and just changed them from capture points to Pokemon appropriate things like gyms and Pokestops and places where Pokemon could be, or like how rare they were in certain areas. So what I imagine the Harry Potter game to be is more like Ingress than Pokemon Go, where you either join like Voldemort's side, like the dark arts people, and then the good versus evil side, basically. And so I guess you would start off by picking which side of the story you want to be on, and then you go around and trying to capture points, or maybe not necessarily capturing points, but doing things to affect the world around you so that your influence spreads for your side. And I'm assuming that's what the game is going to be. And that's my assumption based on absolutely no information about what Harry Potter Go is going to be.
I think like in the very beginning when you boot up the app, it'll ask you what team you're on, whether it's Gryffindor or Gryffindor
About that.
or Gryffindor.
In the different houses. So actually,
Yeah.
a page here that gives Niantic's description, a brief description. It says players will be exploring real-world neighborhoods and cities across the globe, go on adventures, learn and cast spells, discover mysterious artifacts, and encounter legendary beasts and iconic characters. So it seems like they're going with I guess that it's going to be kind of, I don't know if you saw the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them sequel, like movies that
No, did not.
The expanded universe of Harry Potter. But basically in that movie, the main character has a collection of like unique and legendary beasts that are either very rare or just very magical in nature. And so that was kind of the whole focus of the movie, was his collection of beasts. And so I wonder if that's something that they're going to incorporate into this, is encountering those same monsters that he had and trying to either capture them or save them or something. But yeah, like other than capturing points, I'm not sure what they really mean by going on adventures. Like, I don't know what kind of quests, for lack of a better term, they're going to have in this game. And I guess maybe learn and casting spells. So I'm guessing it's going to have like a Skyrim type system where you have to find spells, or like in Skyrim's case where you find the text of the shouts and then you can learn them and then use them. So that might be something where you actually have to go around and find the the actual words to use for spells, but I really have no idea what they're really trying to accomplish with this, other than a fan service game for Harry Potter fans.
When this comes out, it's gonna be super popular for like a month,
Yeah.
and then no one's gonna play it. Just like Pokemon Go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so like if Pokemon Go actually released with multiplayer stuff in the beginning, or things to actually do besides just go around and catch Pokemon, I think that it would have lasted longer initially. And they finally got around to adding all of that, but it's so late now
Yeah.
that most of the people who were playing are not playing anymore, and they're like me. Like I used to play it back when it first came out, hoping that you would have some. I mean, they did have the gyms, but it wasn't really. That wasn't enough. Like you just going around and catching Pokemon, and then going around to each gym and trying to become the gym leader. But they needed more in the launch of the game to keep people interested. And if they had introduced all the stuff that they have now initially in the launch of the game, I definitely think it would have done a lot better. But they decided to release it without finishing it, I think, and added the content in later. But yeah, we'll see how this Harry Potter one goes. Maybe they'll learn from that mistake and actually add more content and things to do right from the start, so it keeps people engaged before they lose the audience. But I have no idea.
Do you think that they might be oversaturating the market?
I don't know if there's enough AR games at this point, but maybe I don't know.
I don't think there's like enough interest for AR games, and like I think people were more interested in Pokemon than AR.
Yeah, that's true.
Ready to move on?
Sure.
All right. So Walking Dead zombie game seeks Pokemon style success. Tell me about this.
So this one I just added to the list because it was kind of related to the Pokemon game, but there's another studio which is not Niantic this time, but they're making a Walking Dead themed Pokemon Go like game, AR game. But basically, it's supposed to be based on the show.
Does that mean I get to catch Daryl?
Yeah. I am not quite sure. I'm guessing they didn't really talk much about the game design in this article. They just kind of talked about how the success of the show should lead to the success of this game, and they're optimistic about it, which I think is it's a very naive perspective to have.
Yeah. Because
but
there's been multiple games based on the show. Like there's a first-person shooter that came out and it flopped, and there's like a mobile game. I don't know how well that does, but yeah, and I feel like the popularity of the show is also starting to decline.
yeah, and it looks like this company has made a zombie game before that was based on Walking Dead, and that one, I guess they said it was downloaded by more than 16 million users. But I don't know how many of those users remained active users.
Yeah.
And that's the key point. Like you can't base it off of download numbers, because the issue is that, especially with mobile games, there's not really a huge like review system for them like there is for traditional PC and console games. So people generally will know a lot about PC and console games before they come out. But with mobile games, you have to try them to learn much about them. So there's there's going to be a lot of people that download it just to see what it's like, and that's their review process. And the key for mobile games is user retention, not initial downloads.
Yeah, I download a bunch of mobile games all the time, and I never even boot them up. It's like, oh, Marvel Future Fight. This looks cool. Maybe I will boot it up one day. Nope.
Yeah, but yeah, I just wanted to mention this because the Harry Potter AR game was also mentioned. So
All right. And one other thing that's like not video game related, but I want to talk about anyways. So the past week, like there were articles about Disney trying to trying to acquire 20th or 21st Century Fox. Um, and like their failed attempt, and it looks like there's now reports that they have not abandoned that yet, and they're still trying to acquire 21st Century Fox. Um, so a lot of people have been mentioning that this would definitely mean the reacquirement of the X-Men in the live action for the movies, the license for the X-Men, and as well as Fantastic Four. Also, one thing that a lot of people haven't mentioned, it's also the acquirement of the license for A New Hope, because I believe that is owned by Fox, and they would love for that because they own Star Wars. So they would really like to release the ultimate non-Lucas edition of A New Hope.
Yeah.
Is that what they would call it?
That would be the official title.
The non-Lucas edited edition. The unedited.
The unedited, yep.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure if they released like original theatrical cut, people would like run over others out on Black Friday just to buy that at full price. But either way, so the requirements of X-Men. So I know a lot of people would love for the X-Men to join the MCU. And I mean, like, I think it would be neat for them to finally be able to say mutant again. Or, I mean, not again, but for the first time in the MCU, and kind of like just stop trying to shove the Inhumans down our throats because the Inhumans aren't working. But the thing is, like, even though I feel like Fox has been extremely hit or miss with the X-Men, I mean, they've been definitely missed with the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
But with the X-Men, they've been very hit or miss. I think they're better. It's better off for the fans for Fox to keep holding the X-Men rights. And the reason why is because I feel like Fox has been taking more risks. Like they're doing stuff that's more different. And because they're taking more risks, of course, there's failures, but there's also their projects that are very different. I mean, look at Logan. Logan is like an R-rated violent Western. And Deadpool, which is an ultra violent comedy. And you have Legion, which is like a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
And I hear The Gifted is pretty good. I haven't watched that yet. But the New Mutants, I don't know if you saw the trailer for that, but the New Mutants movie is like a horror film. So they're obviously like doing stuff that's very different. While Marvel, like with the MCU, they've been doing like different themes here and there, like, oh, this is a space movie and this one is you know, a not space movie. But for the most part, they stick with like a similar formula with their movies. And I know a lot of people who I talk to in person, like they don't even watch Marvel movies any longer because they're like, oh, they're all the same. And I can see that. I'm not gonna argue against them,
Hmm.
but like I said, Fox is actually trying to do different things with their movies, and uh, for every like you know X-Men Origins Wolverine, you have a Logan. You have both the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, like, what are your thoughts?
Um, it's interesting to see when companies are trying to acquire like on such a large scale like this. But um, I think it could potentially lead to uh, it could lead to some good things, but at the same time, I think a lot of people might be worried about this just because Disney has been, uh, I guess, like sweeping up a lot of other studios, and for some people, it's been for the better. And I think things like the Star Wars movies have actually done really well because of the Disney acquisition. Um,
I thought that both those movies have been okay.
I
That's
think
my
they,
opinion, though.
yeah, and I think from a general standpoint, a lot of people definitely liked the fact that I guess that they're putting more emphasis towards potentially doing the spin-offs. Like Rogue One would never have happened probably without Disney.
Hmm.
Uh, and now they're also talking about doing a Han Solo movie. I mean, well, yeah, Han Solo movie, and then I know that Obi-Wan Kenobi movie has been uh, requested a lot by a lot of fans, including myself. And so things like that could be possible. And um, it seems like this next Star Wars movie that's coming out next month is supposed to be really good because they've already, I guess Disney was happy enough to, I guess they were doing like a new, they locked in the director for more movies, more Star Wars movies, I guess, from what I remember reading.
Hmm.
So it seems like they're pretty happy with the returns on this and the quality of what they're doing. So I mean, maybe Disney owning a lot of these things isn't necessarily a bad thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, everyone's perspective is going to be different. Um,
Yeah. I mean, like, speaking of oversaturation, I mean, like, I've said it before that like this is like the best time to be a fan of superheroes and comic books because there's so many good superhero movies now, but at the same time, there's like an oversaturation at this point. Like, there's a new like either superhero or superhero esque or like comic book based movie like every couple months at this point.
yeah,
There's like so many TV shows that it's hard to keep up with them. I mean, like I haven't watched The Gifted yet, and The Runaways also is like starting, and I haven't watched Inhumans. I don't know. At this point, I probably won't watch Inhumans because I heard it's not very good. Um,
yeah,
there's just so much.
and
Um,
um, I think it's fine to not necessarily have to watch everything because I mean, if you look at just the comic books industry in general, there's a lot out there,
yeah,
and not everyone has time to read everything.
I
And
do.
they basically make a lot of different types of comic books that appeal to a wide variety of people, and obviously you've got the big ones, like, you've got all the major superheroes from Marvel and DC, which majority of comic book fans are familiar with and have read through. But then there's also still a lot of things that they haven't read through, that may have also been made by Marvel and DC that the biggest fans may not have even gotten through. So I think it's okay for there to be a lot to choose from, as long as they aren't trying to make everything for everyone, if that makes sense. Like, they need to tailor each of those experiences based on what the story is about, and not trying to make every single one of these movies a huge a big ticket movie, basically.
Yeah. And like I feel like that's what Fox is doing right now. I mean, like if you look at the trailer for the New Mutants, it's clearly a horror movie.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, whether it's going to be good or bad, I mean, I probably won't watch it because of the fact that I'm not really into horror movies, but it's just really cool that they are taking such a different direction with the New Mutants than anything else that's come out so far that is comic book or like superhero based. It just looks like it's a horror movie that has mutants in it. And I mean, I loved Legion. Season 1 of Legion was amazing. One of my favorite TV shows of recent years. I can't wait for Legion season 2, and it's very different from like all the other superhero TV shows.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I feel like that Fox, at least they're doing that with trying to do like different flavors with the different the different characters. And Netflix, I mean, they're somewhat doing that as well. I mean, like Jessica Jones as was different from Daredevil, and then Luke Cage was different from those, going for like a neo blaxploitation. And then Iron Fist was different from all those because it tried doing some very, very controversial. That they wanted to bring out a crappy TV show, and then so like they're like doing different stuff. And then this month we got Punisher.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Punisher's coming out this month.
Forgot about that.
Yeah. What I really like about this website I have open, it's like the articles on here look like they're tabloids. It's like Barry Allen's in love with new Reverse Flash.
Yeah.
It's like one of those new magazines at the checkout counter.
Yeah.
Oh no! Who is Barry Allen in love with now? we got pictures showing that Barry Allen is cheating. I love like this little picture over here on the side, like as if it's a tabloid.
Yeah.
And like the word love is in all capitals.
Yeah. He is in love
with new Reverse Flash. Unbelievable. Injustice 2 includes TMNT? Question mark? Why the question mark? I don't understand that. Shouldn't it be like an explanation point?
Yeah. This is unconfirmed yet, but click here to read and find out.
Whoa!
All clickbait.
The baits, the baitiest of all clickbaits. But yeah, so I mean that's my opinion on this. I mean, like I as much as I would like to see Wolverine hang out with the Avengers and like Professor X have like a discussion with like Tony Stark and Doctor Strange, and create the Illuminati. Whatever. But like, as cool as that would be, like I think as far as like preventing a monopoly from happening with the superhero genre, basically being carried by Marvel, because DC isn't really doing too much.
Right.
I think it's better for the consumers, better for the fans, for Fox to continue holding the rights for X-Men. I mean, give Fantastic Four back to Marvel, but I think X-Men should still be. I mean, I think that would be better off with Fox having X-Men, because I mean, what would Marvel do with Deadpool? Would Marvel really? I mean, like, would they include Deadpool with the Avengers and really keep him being Deadpool, like how he was in the movie? I don't think so. I mean, like, they would tone him down to like PG.
Because they would have to make it really family oriented if they want it to continue like fitting in with the rest of their movies.
Yeah. I mean, I think 5 years ago or 4 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, I probably said, I would love for Marvel to get the X-Men back. But at this point, with especially, like starting last year with Deadpool, and then Logan came out this year, and Legion came out this year. Like, those are just really, really good, and they're extremely different. And I don't see Marvel making stuff that's that different.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts. You have anything you want to add?
Nope, not really.
All right. Let's wrap things up. Hello, I'm back on the screen again. Welcome to Ada Continues, episode 299. This is the episode before oh wait, I'm not there yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. Hello. So listener feedback, I don't have any listener feedback this week, but if you want to write into the podcast, you can write into podcast@continues.com. Let's wrap up the show. If you enjoy what you've been hearing, you could like us on Facebook. Support us by liking us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, leave an iTunes review, subscribe to the Google Play Music, or you can contact by email. That's podcast@outofcontinues.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/outofcontinues. All those things I just said, they can be found on the website. That's www.outofcontinues.com. You can give me a tweet. I am at SayedStafa. That's at SayedStafa. And I would like to thank my guest host for joining me today. I just tanked you.
Oh, thanks, Stafa.
But I would also like to thank you.
Thank you for having me on your podcast again.
And with that said, I'm your host, Stafa. And also Kevin has a Twitter as well.
Oh, yeah. It is at KSTrehan. That's KSTREHAN.
And yeah, I'll see you guys next week when we do the real episode 299. Bye. And if you're watching this on YouTube, click on the icon that's above my face to subscribe. Over here is last week's episode, and over there is the episode before that. Beep.